Hey everyone. So, since Easter is coming and our world is just turned upside down, I wanted to take a few minutes to share my story and the hope that I am clinging to. So, my story, it is all about Jesus, and I just wanted to share with you where I've been, some of the things that I've been through, and kind of what I've learned along the way. He continues to write my story, and I know He continues to write yours. So I just hope this speaks to someone, and I am praying that the Lord will use it. So, my story, I think, kind of begins really all my life. I have been in church. I've knew basic Christian beliefs from going to church as a child. I wouldn't say that we went every Sunday, but I definitely remember being at church a lot of Sundays and hearing the message. But I really didn't respond to it until I was about 15. I was going to Mabel White Youth Group with some friends. I remember Carly Hinton at the time, and Ashley Devane, and just some of my high school friends really being involved at Mabel White. And I just am so thankful that they invited me to church. And it was there on a Wednesday night that I got saved. And I remember that time. I remember that just the Lord was speaking to my heart, and I truly believe I got saved then. But honestly, nothing much changed in my life. By outward appearances, I mean, I just still continue to live the life I wanted to. I really did not seek the Lord. I did not read my Bible, and that did not change for quite a while. So my activities that I just had already been doing, I just continued to do, especially in my 20s. I lived just a sinful lifestyle, and I think subconsciously I didn't realize the effect that that it had on me in my relationship with God. I figured that I was saved since I had responded to the gospel, and I knew that I was going to heaven. So I didn't really see the need for any big changes in my life. But that all changed. Sorry, I got some notes. I want to stick to those, I hope. But so when I was working as a nurse in the neonatal ICU, I remember some friends. I remember one specific conversation. We were working night shift, and they were talking about going to church. And as in my adult life, I wouldn't say that I ever took the initiative to go. So they were talking about going to church, and we decided we would go together. So we began attending Ingleside Baptist, and I consistently started going to church. And I remember several times being in that church when we first started going and just sensing the Lord's presence. And that was something that was so comforting. And I started to realize that the feeling I was feeling on Sunday morning, I wanted more of that versus what I was doing on Saturday night. And as much as I wanted to tell myself that my Saturday night activities were not affecting my relationship with the Lord, and not sinful, I definitely realized a difference on Sunday mornings and just any time that I would spend seeking the Lord. So I started reading my Bible, and the Lord just started kind of convicting my heart. And then I remember one night, I just kind of was at the end of my rope. I remember all the fun that I was having, and I didn't want to let it go. But this particular night, I realized that I was left feeling empty, and I was just not fulfilled. And I just remember praying and saying, basically, I surrendered. And I remember telling the Lord that I wanted to try it His way, because my life was seemingly out of control, and I felt broken. And anyway, I just surrendered to Him that night, and I'd like to say everything just completely changed that night, but it didn't. I definitely started making an attempt to follow the Lord. I started just really seeking Him and praying, and it has not been easy since then. But I will say from that night, gradually I have begun to develop a relationship with the Lord, and it is still very much imperfect, and I'm still very much imperfect. But I will say that He has shown me the joy and the peace and the fulfillment that is promised when we follow His will rather than our own. So if you are in a place where you are just in despair or uncertain or don't know where your life is headed, or you don't really have a purpose, I just really encourage you to pray about that and just kind of evaluate where you are. The good news is this: um, anything you have done or anything you will do is not beyond what He can forgive. I can say that my sin has been and is great, but His grace is greater. See, He gave us commandments and rules a long time ago, and He knew that we would never be able to fulfill those on our own, which is why He sent Jesus. Jesus was His gift, His one and only Son to us. And sorry, my kids came out here. I'm losing my train of thought. And He lived a sinless life, and He died on the cross, and He rose 3 days later. So He proved that His power is greater than death and each one of our sins. Romans 5:8, one of my favorite verses, says, God proved His own love for us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. One of my favorites. He just proved His love. And I think all those times when I was going out looking for fun, I think I was looking for love. And this is where I found it in Jesus. So He paid the price that we each deserve for sin. The punishment of sin is death and eternity in hell. And when we confess that we are sinners and believe that Jesus died on the cross for our sin, then we can be saved, and we can be promised an eternity with Him in heaven. And not only that, but when we walk in His will, we're promised the peace that we all so desperately want, and especially in times like this. So when we become reliant on Him and seek a relationship with Him through Bible reading and prayer, He becomes the hope that we have regardless of our earthly circumstances. So I'm just praying that you'll search your heart and find, kind of where you stand. And I pray that if you make a decision for Christ or just to surrender to Him today, Lord, I just pray that you will tell somebody. And if that's me or somebody else you trust, I pray that you'll just tell somebody. Thank you for listening to my story, and reach out if you have any questions. I know I didn't share a ton of detail, but I know that lots struggle. So let me know if you have questions or any comments. Thanks for listening.